Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming back again. Today we're going to be talking about where the ego comes from, because I think that's a very, very interesting question. Where does it come from? When did it start? I think the natural answer to that would be that the ego was born when we were born, because as babies we learn that when we start crying we get a reaction from our parents, whether that's feeding, whether that's cuddling, whether it's just time being spoken to softly, or mothers singing, or even fathers. But what if it went back even further? What if the ego is actually born within our mother's womb? Because we are, in actual fact, energetic beings. Some people call it the soul, some people call it the kai, the prana, whatever you want to call it. But in actual fact, we are nothing more than energy. Universal energy, cosmic energy, whatever you want to call it, we are energy. And as a little entity in our mother's womb, but an entity of energy, we recognize energy when it comes towards us, when it's being given to us. Even though we're not consciously aware of being aware of the energy being transferred to us, or vice versa, when we're transmitting energy to somebody else, we still know of this transmission. We all have this capability of recognizing what the message is that we receive through this energy being transmitted to us. So even in the womb, when a baby kicks, the automatic reaction is for the parents to run over and touch the woman's stomach. Even among friends, it's not just necessarily between husband and wife, the touching or the attention or the energy. But in any case, the little entity in the mother's womb receives this energy. It recognizes that it is subconsciously, or as a being that's not yet formed, the energy still recognizes that it's receiving energy, positive energy, because usually the sentiments behind that are, oh, how lovely, how cute, oh, isn't that adorable, all the beautiful feelings, and energy feeds off that beautiful energy that it receives. So what if at the same time that energy is teaching the little entity to have ego, because the ego, or because this ego is formed, let's say, by recognizing that every time it kicks or it moves its foot, it gets this beautiful positive energy come in and it can absorb it. And that's what the ego is doing. That's what the ego does. The ego creates a desire as a reaction to something it's longing for, because it makes them feel good, if that makes sense. So, for example, the ego is always seeking gratification. It knows it can get gratification by kicking the mother, because the response to that is the positive energy that's poured in from the people who are witnessing the kick or trying to feel the kick, etc., etc., etc. So this could be, for me, the starting point of the ego. And then, of course, as we're babies, we learn that each reaction or each behavior we have causes a certain response from our parents and the people around us, our environment. And so this ego gets stronger and stronger and stronger, because in actual fact, the ego thinks that it is the surviving force behind our human existence. That's what it believes, but in actual fact it's not. Because the ego can save us from nothing. Because even when we don't have an ego, we can be saved. It's not the ego that saves us, it's the subconscious mind. It's the energy. It's the place where all existence exists. And for this, we have to get into a conversation about energy, because everything in the whole universe is energy. Although we look at things and we see them and we think they exist, they are nothing more than energy particles that are held together. But in actual fact, nothing exists. The only reason we have language and communication is because we all agree, that we're going to call something by a determined name. I.e., we're going to call a bottle, so that in any country, whatever language we translate it into, or if we draw it on a piece of paper because we don't know how to say it, we'll all agree, and we all know, and we all understand that a bottle is a bottle. But if an alien came to Earth and had never seen a bottle, and we say a bottle, or we draw a picture of a bottle, the alien still wouldn't know what we're talking about. So in order to recognise and accept even language, we have to all be familiar with what language stands for. But what if, and I ask you this question, what if the tales of Atlantis are true? What if Atlanteans were all telepathic? What if we as a human race are telepathic by nature, and language is, in actual fact, a hindrance to real communication? Because if you think about it, we can say whatever we want with words. We can tell the truth, we can lie, we can distort, we can invent. And depending on how convincing you are when you're using these 4 types of languages, the person who is in front of you will probably take you at face value and believe everything you're saying, because you're saying it in words. But there is a second form of communication going on, and that is the energy being transferred between 2 people. And not just people, between people and animals, people and plants, animals and plants, the world, the universe. To kind of give you an example, I ask you a question. Have you ever been talking to somebody who apparently seemed very pleasant, but during the conversation you took a step back from them without realising that you did it, without really knowing that you did it, or knowing that you did it for some completely inexplicable reason? Well, if that's happened to you, then chances are you were subconsciously responding to the conversation going on in the energetic field with this person, rather than what was being said with words and language. You may have felt threatened in some way. In fact, the very fact that you took a step backward is an indication of trying to keep a distance, protecting yourself. It's a defense mechanism. So at some point your energetic field felt threatened, even though you personally, as a human being consciously present in this world that we live in, some people call it the 3D world, you didn't feel threatened at all by their words. I could take this one step further and say that while the ego was being enchanted by this person's words, our subconscious wasn't. So in actual fact, it's the energy that's protecting us. It's our subconscious that's protecting us, and not the ego. The ego serves no purpose whatsoever that I can find to date, except for teaching us. I'm not going to say whether the ego comes from a good place or a bad place as a teacher, but I would say that whatever place it does come from, it's only the loving kindness and compassion that we show towards ourselves that can make the ego truly a wise teacher to carry with us throughout our lifetime. So in other words, if we show ourselves kindness and compassion and show our ego kindness and compassion, the ego can turn into a little child that we can teach. And through teaching that little child, the adult becomes aware, becomes a totally conscious being. becomes a being of wisdom. But since all these attributes, even in praise, are just fabrications of the ego, the adult just becomes. And I'll tell you why even attributes such as praise are a fabrication of the ego in the next video. For today, that's enough. Thank you very much for listening once again. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you do enjoy anything, or if you find anything of use. Be happy, be safe, and walk in love.